Hi everyone, my name is Allie Sheets. I use she, her pronouns, and I am an advisor at Yale University, mostly working with scholars, a little bit of students and employees as well. We've been interfacing with Homebase since about 2022, and what we were, struggling with, honestly, was how to free up time for our advisors and our advising team in our office and really streamline what we were doing. We welcome around 1,500 J1 scholars and their families annually to New Haven. And so year round, we were doing 2 orientation sessions a month. They were about an hour and a half. They were not mandatory. And so we were figuring out a way about how to be better. How can we increase our retention rate in terms of getting our folks to attend these sessions, but also really serving our community to make sure they had the information they needed and their families were supported as well. So what that looked like prior to Homebase was an hour dedicated to immigration compliance, and we all know that everyone can understand everything in an hour. And 30 minutes also dedicated to ensure there was some social networking and connection that was happening amongst our scholars. The great part of what we used to do is that we had an in-person interface with all the new scholars that came to our office. They knew where we were located. They got to see our advising team to get regular, face-to-face interactions. But then we were also able to have regular touch points, understanding the common questions we were getting asked over and over to see how our messaging could improve and what we could do better. The cons of what we were doing was it was very time consuming. Our advisors were on a rotation schedule, dedicating an hour and a half every week to not only just this scholar orientation, but our walk-in system, our virtual queue system. Attendance wasn't required. And what we were really concerned about was how do we maintain compliance? That was probably our number one issue within our office. How are we ensuring that we are compliant within the Department of State regs, ensuring that we fulfill that, but also how do we prove that? Because there was really no way we were proving that. And so our solution was Homebase, which is lovely. So now we really customized an entire template for Yale University itself. So what we did is our entire J1 pre-arrival and orientation is now required, and it's online. Our couple barriers we were experiencing is, which I'm sure all of you can attest to, folks weren't receiving their net IDs quick enough. And so there wasn't a way in-house within our own Yale system that we could have the solution. But now that we're moving into Homebase, they can start this process whenever they want. So they're not getting the information too late in the visa process when they should be asking and answering these questions. And it's been really, really successful that they just get this link when they get their DS 2019s, and then they start the entire Homebase orientation process. There's a section for their families, really a way to get to know New Haven and Yale University itself. And so we have required this Homebase orientation for their J1 validation. And so we tell everyone there's a unique code that everyone gets in at the end of their Homebase. Spoiler alert, it's the same code. They just don't know that. So it makes it really seamless for our office. And folks just type that in when they're completing their TDS check-in. So we are a Teradata school. And so it's been really easy and seamless for us to prove that they both have received that certificate of completion and their unique code. And then they just submit that when they are completing their validation, so that we can absolutely prove that every single person starting from early 2023, everyone that's entered in J1 status and their families have maintained their compliance. And really at the bottom, you can see the CFR that we all should be following, hopefully, but that is a way for us to actually give, if we're ever audited or anything like that, there's concrete feedback that we have that. We do have a couple mini quizzes throughout our platform. There's only 4 just to make sure we're checking for understanding and that folks aren't just clicking through the whole thing to avoid answering those questions. But we also knew how important it was to maintain our touch points with our scholar community. So they still meet in our office 2 times a month for a brief immigration refresh of like 2 slides, maybe 10 minutes talking to an advisor. And then the rest of the time is used to interact and network with one another. And actually, since using Homebase, we've seen an increase in people attending those sessions. So now we're seeing people come to our office more for that session. And that also positive side for our office is we'd be getting less emails from our scholar community because they're aware they can log back into Homebase and answer the questions that they're searching for. Less emails, less walk-ins. So our day-to-day has significantly improved with our general messaging. We still have the normal questions that scholars will answer in the complicated immigration scenarios, but the day-to-day has been resolved through Homebase, and it's been really, really, really successful. So currently we use our pre-arrival orientation for our J1 community. We just launched our H1B orientation for all of our employees. Again, that's mandatory and has a completion component. Our J1 non-degree orientation, which is year-round, happens through Homebase now. We have some departments that are utilizing Homebase on their own accord, but that's been really successful because they've just seen how great it is in our office. And we're hoping to expand. So as our advising team gets larger and we have more folks, we're hoping to expand our uses for OPT, STEM OPT sessions, employee orientations for, our non-common sponsored visas and EADs. So it's been really, really a useful tool.